interesting prop a bit more if we get the chance, forcing the top on turn 1.
Yeah, if you know how important this card is for the whole deck, for the whole strategy of miracles, I think this is a very reasonable line, which kind of shows how powerful, how absurdly powerful Sensei's Dividing Top is.
It certainly can be when things line up correctly, and Sochurek obviously really wanting to get on the front foot and not fall behind to an early top. I know it's been hotly debated by Legacy players up and down the tournaments whether you force the turn 1 top against Miracles, but certainly Floch with 2 copies of Counterbalance in his hand, and he would have been looking to set the lock up very quickly.
But the answer to this question absolutely depends on what you're playing yourself.
Of course.
Because you can also try to force the Counterbalance, but Counterbalance on its own is not a card you're afraid of.
In a vacuum, certainly you'd rather have a Counterbalance on the battlefield than a Sensei's Divining Top.
I think yes. The way I would describe it is if you're playing against a person with an active top and ample mana, it's almost like they've a constant, like they have one Ancestral Recall like on the stack.
Yeah, over a very, very long period of time. It's a slow burn. Yeah, you're right. Sultai Delver has been the choice for Sochurek here. You've got the list in front of you, Simon. Anything standing out to you, mate?
When I first looked at the list, my first look was whether I would find a Shardless Agent or not. But no, this is a Delver aggro deck, but that also tries to control the game somewhat. But I don't see any creatures on Peter's side, so...
No, so not off to the start that he's hoping for, I imagine, here. Ivan Floch has resolved this Counterbalance, it looks like, or at least it's on the stack. No, it's going to be countered, it looks like. Sochurek does have the answer to it in the form of... Oh, an Abrupt Decay, so there you go. It did manage to resolve all the same. Sultai colours that do give players sort of the best answers in the format between Abrupt Decay and Force of Will.
Yeah, just the best answers, period. Right?
Yeah, there you go. Nothing more to say on that. No. Can't go any further with that.
Spells and permanents.
Spells and permanents is how it goes with Sultai colours.
How about
here.
you add 4 Wastelands to the mix?
Not a bad addition there. And that's what Sochurek has done here as he brainstorms. Floch, on the other hand, looks to be playing the sort of a pretty regular Miracles list. 3 Snapcasters in the main, which is a little bit more than we usually see. But apart from that, nothing too spicy going on. In the board, though, of course, the red splash comes in the board for things like Red Elemental Blast, Pyroblast, Wear, and Tear. And a piece of technology that really has cemented itself in the Miracle 75, 3 Monastery Mentors in the board.
Yes, the card that, even if you know it's coming, is very, very difficult to play around.
Thoughtseized for Sochurek here, so he's going to have his pick of what he wants to take from Floch.
Sochurek can't be unhappy about how things are going. He still hasn't really gotten a chance to make this make a clock, but it's not so important because you can stifle the Miracle deck somehow. It will draw cards which are not the right ones for the situation.
I mean, Sochurek really, what he's wanting to do is stick an early threat, stick a Tarmogoyf, stick a Delver of Secrets, and then sort of ride that to victory. He hasn't done that, but conversely, the Miracles player now, Floch, hasn't punished him for it.
No, and the Miracles player will almost never punish you quickly. only by generating this kind of position where you can't really do anything about it. But now, for example, if Petr finds a Tarmogoyf, he has this clock, and Ivan needs to answer it.
So Counterbalance off the top, or Counterbalance from the hand for Floch. That's going to mean that Sochurek has to cast cards blind into the Counterbalance. It's staggering the difference between just the Counterbalance on its own in combination with the top.
Yeah, this is also goes back to the argument of whether to counter the top. You can Abrupt Decay a Counterbalance, but you can't Abrupt Decay. Well, you can't really Abrupt Decay.
No, not unless your opponent has F6. No, that's right.
So you can certainly try to play a game where you only deal with the Counterbalances by forcing that and Abrupt Decaying it, but then you have to play against the top, and it's unfortunate that we don't see the.
Yeah, we might try to fix that up so we can get a look at what's going on in the library there. But it obviously was a 1-drop. We'll see what it was right now. It was a Brainstorm. So that's a handy hit there for Floch for 2 reasons. First of all, gets rid of that Delver. Second of all, I think he's happy to have a little bit more selection here.
Third of all, it makes his next Counterbalance flap that much more scary.
Oh, that's very true, yeah, because in response
Fourth
to the Counterbalance
all, no,
trigger.
just
Fourth of all? Another
kidding.
fourth one? No. So, yes, he... Floch at the moment has a range of casting costs. He's got 1, 2, and 3, and 6 in his hand as well. So he can cast those. Oh, geez, what? Titans might come down. The Chandra Flame Callers.
After Oath of Nissa.
Yeah.
No, this is just. I like Peter's decision to fight against the top, against the turn 1 top. There's a lot of situations where it's correct to have your opponent have the counterbalances, I think.
Counterbalance number 3 here for Floch.
Getting the blind hit on Delver is just unfortunate.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty there for Sochurek, but now Floch looking to go into the later stage of the game. He's hitting his land drops. He's got an Entreat the Angels, which he will be able to miracle thanks to that Brainstorm when he's good and ready.
Yes, but this is a very, very long-term plan.
Yeah.
Now Ivan is really just playing a waiting game.
Yeah.
Because he knows that long-term he's favored. But Peter also has to wait because he now has to start to play around the counterbalance triggers. So he will want to find 2, maybe even 3 cheap threats of different mana costs, and then kind of maneuver around it. But I think it's taking him too long.
Sensei's Divining Top, the draw for Floch here. So between these 2 counterbalance triggers and a fetch land, really, I think it'll be difficult for Sochurek to resolve something, especially considering Floch has 1, 2, and 3 casting cost in his hand. Swords to Plowshares, Brainstorm. Oh no, the second counterbalance has been cast, excuse me, and the Entreat the Angels acting as the 3 there. So 2 triggers for this in response to this Brainstorm. Let's reveal the first one. It's a Polluted Delta. Is Floch going to shuffle? Or will we just see a Brainstorm here? We're going to see a Brainstorm. So Floch obviously now with the option to counter that the Brainstorm that Sochurek is playing.
And Sochurek has these forces which look absolutely miserable. This is not really about forcing something. The whole matchup is played on a different axis. Sure, you can force the Sensei's Divining Top, but this is not getting you very far.
No, so what I think we might see here is after Ivan Floch has resolved this Brainstorm, it looks like Sochurek might be in on the a hard cast Force of Will plan on that top. I mean, certainly that's what I'd be looking at. What are you looking at here, Zimon?
I agree. Losing 3 fetch lands activations is not great.
No.
We do have enough targets in the deck, but there's only 6 duels, so I hope there's not a duel in the graveyard. Actually, like using all your fetches is detrimental for all the future Brainstorms.
That's probably the biggest price to pay there, and we're going to see 1, 2, 3, pay 3 life, get 3 lands out, and it looks like a hard cast Force of Will. So that's fine, says Floch. This is still on the stack. The Sensei's Divining Top.
Yes. And both of these players are very clear about their communication.
Yeah, it's good to see this sort of stuff, especially with all of this stack interaction. It's so important to make sure all the players are on the same page with this stuff, as we see Double Trop and an Underground Sea come out here.
And it's so easy to just think, like one player thinks we are at end of turn, the other player thinks something is still on the stack, so I like to see this.
Hardcast Force of Wills, not something we see every day here. See what Floch has to say about that. Floch, of course, ranked 22nd in the world. He's got a Pro Tour championship under his belt as well. Just like you, mate.
Just like me.
Just like you.
Also, wondering why Terminus wasn't a 5-mana card there.
Yeah. For sure. Okay. So here we go. That's dealt with the top there. So Sochurek keeping his head above water, although, again, no action for him this turn.
He drew a Tarmogoyf, I think, but declined to cast it. He knew it would have gone under the counterbalance, but he also knew that Ivan was about to draw Swords to Plowshares.
Wasteland, now the draw for Sochurek. So how does Sochurek here gain some leverage off of this Tarmogoyf, knowing full well that there's a Swords to Plowshares?
Response Brainstorm.
Yeah.
And maybe you actually force the Brainstorm. You don't try to beat the sword here. I think you try to beat... You cannot let the Miracles player Brainstorm.
So down comes the Tarmogoyf.
So this is actually interesting. I think... Oh, wow.
So it doesn't even reveal. Floch choosing not even to reveal the top card of his library here.
Does he know it? Yes, he knows
Yeah,
it.
knows thanks to the brainstorm, put back 2 cards.
I'm surprised. I'm very surprised at this. Maybe it's a 5 casting cost card. Is this possible?
On the top? Almost certainly not, because then it would counter the it would have countered the force last turn.
Let's see. Ah, that's why he didn't shuffle.
Ah, there we go.
Because if it wasn't like anything like this, I think you just would have used your fetch. Such a free free way to deal with the Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, so we're going to see here now an entreat for 3.
And now we see the interaction.
So, first counterbalance flips an Arid Mesa. Now we're going to see Ivan Floch probably casting well, definitely fetching. And needs to find an answer to this Force of Will that Sochurek has once again hard cast. That's 2 hard cast Force of Will.
Yes, but I think Ivan had to know it's coming.
Of course.
Petr declined to play something, drew his land number 7.
Yeah.
And then cast Tarmogoyf into what looked to be not a promising.
So at the moment, the stack is Entreat the Angels, Force of Will, Force of Will, Counterbalance Trigger, Brainstorm. Floch looking at these termini and thinking, why do they cost 6?
Ivan is not resolving his entreat. I mean, it's not, or is very very likely not to resolve.
You're saying it's unlikely to resolve.
Thank you. Yes.
No, I'm confirming because here comes another fetch land now. So shuffling away the terminus and a flooded strand there for Floch.
It's just weird because usually the Miracles deck makes absolutely sure that the entreat resolves.
It's the only entreat in his deck. Yeah.
But here he allowed Sochurek a rather easy force. Okay, but clearly now his plan is to just cast a Jace on the next turn.
Yeah. So we've got Jace on the next turn. We've got Jace. We've got apart from Jace, a few other win conditions. I mean, Snap Custom Mage will get you there sometimes. Vendilion Click is a nice one as well, but only the one entreat in the list, which is pretty much industry standard at this stage.
Yes. And Ivan also didn't have to cast it. That's another thing.
Yeah, interesting because you mentioned before, Zimon, you said before that it was a very long-term plan for Floch, but he seemed to pull the trigger a little bit earlier than we both anticipated.
He might have had a read that Sochurek, or he also had a reasonable chance of just countering it with the double counterbalance, but 5s are actually not too easy.
No, there's only 4 copies of a 5 casting cost in Floch's deck, and those are, of course, the Forces of Will. Wasteland taking care of that Tundra.
I would have suspected if you're that far ahead in the game and there's not much that can happen, that Ivan could have just played this more conservatively. Just see if your counterbalances maybe counter the Tarmogoyf on their own, and just delay drawing the Entreat the Angels. You don't need it at this moment.
Sochurek with 2 cards in hand, Flooded Strand and another mystery card here.
Pretty sure it's Dismember, which
member?
Abysmal against Jace the Mind Sculptor.
There is Jace the Mind Sculptor, and that's going to do it. Sochurek knows he's got no way out of that, and so that'll do it for game number 1. These guys are going to hit their sideboards. You can see our feature match area there underway. The 2 champions at the back of your screen there as Floch cleans up in game number 1. But you'd have to say at that stage, Sultai Delver, not with no early pressure, some early answers, Zimon, but certainly treading water for a long time.
You can force an Abrupt Decay your opponent's cards, but if you don't put up any kind of clock on a Miracles player, they will just get to do what they want to do.
Let's have a look at the sideboards for these guys here. Ivan Floch, he's got a Containment Priest, useful against some of the more unfair strategies. 3 copies of Flusterstorm, equally so. Engineered Explosives, we mentioned the red cards, 1 REB, 2 Pyroblast, Wear and Tear, Rest in Peace with Nearly Click, and of course Monastery Mentor. What do you think of the Mentor in this matchup? Are you keen on bringing in the 2/2?
No, not a big fan. I think you can always bring it in, especially how do I say this? The worse it is, the less likely your opponent is going to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of mind games going on, but for example, if I don't bring it in and my opponent still has these dismembers or some other ways to deal with it in their deck,
yeah,
you're also happy.
Yeah, I think the thing is here, a lot of Miracle players, some of them at least anyway, take the philosophy that you've got to overload your opponent's abrupt decays. And so with the fact that they've got to deal with all the counterbalances, and then they've got to deal with these monastery mentals on top, I mean, the list we're looking at here, as far as I can tell, only has 3 copies of abrupt decay.
And 2 Snapcaster Mages.
And 2
so
Snapcaster Mages.
I don't think it's that clear cut, because when you look at Peter's list, he also has a lot of ways to make the game go longer and to pose some real questions for the Miracle deck, as long as we are not talking about a board state where the combo is assembled.
He's got some real interesting ones in the sideboard. Why don't you give us a quick tour of what's going on here?
I think Life from the Loam is very interesting. Painful Truths could be a super interesting way if you want the game to go longer. Yeah. 2 Invasive Surgery.
Yeah, new one from Shadows over Innistrad.
We talked about how Miracles are sorcery speed.
Mm-hmm.
Could be interesting. Golgari Charm is there. Then we see some graveyard hate, some creature hate. Unlikely to come in, of course.
I really like Golgari Charm though against Miracles. It's so relevant. I mean, the two modes are both really relevant on it. Giving creatures -1/-1 is very good if you can time it correctly against a mentor. Very, very good at cleaning things up. But of course, destroy target enchantment. That's a great fail. That's a great fail case.
Yes, and it's better if it's uncounterable. But you're going to be happy either way.
Yeah, I think you'll take whatever answer you can get. Let's move on now and have a look at our other backup table here. Immanuel Gerschenson, he's out of Austria playing against Pierre, who is a Pro Tour finalist, of course, out of France. These guys here, looks like we're kicking it a little bit old school with the Sneak and Show Blue-Red Delver matchup here, Zimon.
Yeah, this could have happened pretty much with the same cards 2 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially if it's a real Sneak and Show deck and not something built around Omniscience. So this has been around for a while.
Preordain here.
Blue-Red Delver, I think, is a little bit of a pet deck of Gerschenson.
Oh, is that right?
It's because you don't really see other people play it, or not. It's not too popular these days.
No, that's right. I mean, we saw the Delver deck start to evolve, and you know the one that we've just recently seen, I think, is pretty typical. Grixis Delver, another list that we do see a lot of these days. But interesting, yeah, just the blue-red one. We might have a look and see exactly why he's selected these lists. I have a clue. I think that we might have some kind of should we say, incentive to play a lot of basic lands. Price of Progress is an absolute beater against many of the decks in the format, Zima.
Yes, and if you are 2 colors, you can actually play at least 2 basics to fetch out yourself, which can already make the difference in the matchups where it's a race, it's a life total race. And if you're playing against Snake and Show, you don't care for your life total at all, unless you're being attacked by Grizzlebrand, but then...
Yeah. By that stage, that ship has probably sailed.
Yeah, different story.
So here's Monastery Swiftspear. It's not the only prowess haste creature in the list, of course. There is also 2 copies of Stormchaser Mage, opting to go for 2 Stormchaser Mages above Young Pyromancer. Only 2 copies of Young Pyro in there as well. So Gerschenson really sort of this is about as aggressive as they get. Yeah,
this is true aggro, and it's also interesting because depending on how you lead. The opponents might mistake your true plan. So you might start with the Delver and they are not aware that you are playing a deck with 4 Price of Progress.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can disguise that well enough, get them to a point where, you know, the Price of Progress is going to kill them but not you, then you're in a great spot, obviously. And you know, with cards like Delver, with cards like Young Pyromancer, you can do that pretty quickly. As we see Dagen take 2 now off of the Monastery Swiftspear after that Ponder.
If you play against mountains and creatures, you expect the prices of progress. But if you play against blue, it's not something that's necessarily on your mind.
Yeah, for sure. And that's it can come out of left field. I do notice that Dagen fetched for an island, so he may be aware of that already. But the red blue decks do offer a pretty robust and very aggressive approach to a format that, while not necessarily durdling around, isn't always the most proactive.
It's actually a rather slow format right now, with Miracles and all the Loam-based decks, keeping things somewhat in check. You have the Punishing Fires, You have the Sensei's Divining Tops. It's not really easy to play these kind of all-in combo decks right now.
We'll head back over to our earlier match now. Now that they've got underway for game number 2, we might get a chance to check in with these guys a little bit later on. But right now, let's go back to the Pro Tour champion Ivan Floch as he does battle against Petr Sochurek here. Sochurek is opening up with a ponder by the look of things as Floch consults his grip. It looks like he's drawn a card for the turn, 8 cards in hand. He's obviously faced with a choice here. Turn 1 top would obviously be where he wants to be, and I can see one in his hands, Iman.
Oh, but this time he's on the draw. Makes a lot of difference.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact that Daze is a card that Peter could have available.
And does indeed. He has a Daze, and he's got a Force of Will in addition to Baleful Strix, Tarmogoyf, a couple of blue cards hiding out there as well. So, yeah, Floch really with some decisions to make as he plays his Arid Mesa.
Does Floch have a top in hand?
Yeah, has a
and didn't play it.
Didn't decline to play it. I can see Vendilion, Click, Ponder, and a bunch of lands as well. Sochurek going to search out his second land now with Flooded Strand.
He knows that Peter will fight over the top.
Yeah, that's an important piece of information. Given that given that Sochurek forced it game 1, Floch knows that that his opponent will. Yeah, go for it. And especially now with Daze, as you said, makes a world of difference. Very big difference between that and Force of Will.
And now Ivan is looking to play it with Red Elemental Blast backup. Whereas Peter now gets another card, has potentially Daze and Force. Ivan has to... it's not an easy decision. He could save the Blast to protect his top, but he can also play it more as a control deck, where he just... deals with the permanent that draws Peter another card.
Volcanic Island being found by Floch here. See if he wants to. He's got anything to do before he begins his second turn.
This could be in response to the Strix.
It's going to be countered. There we go. Or destroyed. Well, no, countered.
No.
Almost certainly countered. And a Daze is going to counter the Pyroblast there. So Sochurek gets his card from the Strix. And it's back to Floch now, who draws a Ponder. Double Ponder, 3 lands, Click, and a Sensei's Divining Top in hand now.
But now you play a land and you play the top. You're safe from another Daze. And if it trades for a Force of Will, I think you accept it.
So Sochurek now with the option to force the top here. We saw him do it in game 1, turn 1, blind. No, it's fine, says Sochurek this time around. And we might see a bit of a Ponderino from Floch. No, opting now to just ship. So we'll obviously see him activate the top end of turn. In comes the Baleful Strix, in for 1.
He's also representing Swords to Plowshares.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think that has much relevance on Peter's decision-making here.
So Sochurek now replaying this Underground Sea, and it's going to be Tarmogoyf here. We might see a top in response. How worried are you about that Tarmogoyf there? Would you force it if you had the option to?
No, I don't think so. You want to find a terminus anyway in the near future.
Okay, so on top, they're very hard to make it out of Swords to Plowshares. Looks like Island and Plains. So Floch does have a nice clean answer to the Tarmogoyf, although Sochurek's still with Force of Will in hand.
Yes, but to be fair, I think the Miracles player doesn't want to force too many spells in this matchup.
Uh-huh.
You want to deal with the cards 1-for-1, or even better, in a 2-for-1 form that favors you.
Arid Mesa in the hand of Floch here. Can hit the battlefield. Shuffle away those 2 lands on top.
Currently we have Sorcery, Instant, and Land. So it's a 3-power creature, which is not necessarily lethal too quickly.
Not the huge threat that it could be, certainly, but I mean, that's only going to grow as the game goes on. But Floch, as you mentioned, Simon, does have a wealth of options.
It's going to grow, yes, but it's more about how much time do I get for the life that I'm paying. Because for Peter, it's super difficult to deploy another threat to the table. If he does, he just runs into
The terminus, yeah, just
runs into
walk
terminus.
straight into some mass removal there, and that could be very unfortunate for Sochurek moving forward. Having said that, the board that he's got here at the moment, it's pretty respectable, as we see a Vendilion click come down. What's Sochurek got to say about that?
Does he have another daze? That would be perfect answer.
That'd be beastly, but unfortunately for Sochurek, no. We see Force, we see Snip Snap, we see Ponder, and 2 lands here. What's got to go?
Good question. All 3 cards do something very relevant.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to take forces. You have to accept that there is always this 2-for-1 option for the opponent. So this just has to be part of your game plan. You want to get your opponent out of resources.
So ultimately it is Snapcaster Mage that gets put on the bottom of Sochurek's library, and he draws a Brainstorm to replace it.
But that makes a lot of sense to me. If you allow your opponent to have the Snapcaster Mage, you will just get either Snapcaster Mage Ponder, could also be Snapcaster Mage Brainstorm later on. So if you want to really fight a resource battle, the Snapcaster Mage is one of the most scary cards.
So Tarmogoyf, still just a 3-4 here. Land instant sorcery. We're going to see a Brainstorm here rather than the Ponder. Sochurek sitting on a fetch land, so he's looking to sculpt his hand a little bit. He finds Daze, he finds Abrupt Decay, and he finds a Misty Rainforest.
So a good Brainstorm.
Yeah, not so bad there really for Sochurek. He's managed to find a couple of pieces that are going to be pretty good as this game continues. I suppose it's important to point out, I'm sure many of our viewers are aware of this, Imon, but the Abrupt Decay doesn't line up so well against Sensei's Divining Top.
No, but there aren't too many spells that do.
No, Sensei's Divining Top with the ability to put itself on the top of your library means its resilience against removal is very high and comes at a very, very low cost.
Yes, it's almost impossible unless you have a Closing Grip, or you are kind of winning once the top leaves the battlefield immediately. It's very interesting here how blocking Baleful Strix will just grow the Tarmogoyf by 2.
Yeah, of course.
Artifact and creature.
Artifact and creature, yeah. That's something that I'm sure many Sultai players don't forget. We see this combination in Shardless Sultai. We see it in Shardless, in Sultai Delver here as well. I mean, yeah, very, very potent indeed. Get a Courser of Krufix up in there as well. Ooh boy. Ooh, baby. Pyroblast the draw now for Ivan Floch. He's got a polluted Delta, so he can continue to develop his mana here.
The fact that you're bringing in Pyroblasts, to me, another good reason to just let your opponent have the forces.
Looks like the Monastery Mentors have been brought in, one of them at least. I don't hate that. Certainly I think at least one is more or less free.
No, I agree. It's just, I don't think you have to bring them in,
No.
but I don't think it's a mistake to do it. It's just, it could be correct, for example, if Ivan wins the game with the Mentor, okay, then he has won the match, but if he plays the Mentor and loses the game, he could take them out next game. Just do what the opponent doesn't expect, or at least go to sideboarding. Like, pretend you're doing something.
I think it's an interesting dance that people have to sort of do, figure out exactly what postures they're going to adopt after board here. I mean, any way you slice it, the Delver deck is going to be aggressive, but it depends then to the Miracles player how they want to meet that aggression. Do they want to put the shields up, or do they want to try to beat down with a Hill Giant?
It's never going to be
A Hill Giant?
an aggro deck, the Miracles deck. To me, it's really about the permission. How do you, what do you allow to resolve? How quickly do you want to get a clean board? Like, how important is it for you to resolve a Terminus?
Yeah.
How aggressively do you pursue this?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The deployment of your permission, the deployment of your removal, that's what's going to determine your posture, much more than bringing in the Mentors.
How do you sequence your 1-mana cards effectively?
Yeah.
Do you fight for the resolution of Sensei's Divining Top? How do you cast Swords to Plowshares? Do you cast it as early as possible, or do you want to wait to trap your opponent with the first Terminus? And then Red Elemental Blast. Do you only counter Force of Will, or will you also use it as a removal spell on Delver? Like, It depends. There's no clear answer.
No, that's the thing, really, just thinking about these questions you're asking. It's difficult, and I think that's really what separates the wheat from the chaff when it comes, deep in the tournament. We're going to see players who know the answers to those questions on a case-by-case basis. And this is the difficult thing, Simon. We can't sit here and say, if X you do Y, if Y you do Z, because it depends on so many more letters than just X, Y, and Z, mate.
And every turn that goes by gives both of these players more information about what the opponent is trying to do and has available. So sometimes some of these cards will be there's a paper in the sleeve that says, only cast me targeting X and never
Y.
Never Y.
Yeah.
And we don't see these kind of notes.
No, that's right.
Notes.
I mean, so many letters, I don't think the Latin alphabet's going to do it. We might have to move into Cyrillic, mate. Let's see what Sochurek can find here in the midway of resolving this ponder. Very well-named card indeed. He's going to shuffle.
It is unfortunate that we don't always see all these piles.
No, it's a shame we didn't get to have a good look at that, and we do apologise for that. But all the same, we're going to see a fresh card off the top for Sochurek.
It's time for glass tables.
Glass tables. Oh, dear. Time for them to wear GoPros on their heads.
Oh, below the table. Everywhere.
Everywhere. GoPros everywhere. Is that a Thoughtseize off the top there? I think it is, yeah. We can see a Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize freshly drawn from Sochurek here. We're going to see another attack for 4.
Wasn't the original art, so I couldn't.
No, of course not, no. Lucky you've got new scrubs like me to help you out in this situation, huh?
You didn't know it was a reprint, did you?
No.
And there is Swords to Plowshares.
His Swords to Plowshares targeting Tarmogoyf there.
What Peter really wants to do, and he has the next Tarmogoyf, is to just let this resolve, cast another one, because he can't deploy too many threats anyway for fear of Terminus.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Really, we talked about the Miracle player and the way that they have to sort of structure their game plan and use their resources. It's also up to their opponents to play around both Swords and Terminus.
Arguably, it's more difficult for the opponent because there is also the problem of course, the counterbalance lock.
Yeah, the longer you wait, the likelier you are to fall to that. I wouldn't be surprised, though, for Floch here, where in response to this Thoughtseize, he's, not in response to it per se, but certainly he's got to think about how he's going to manage the next turn, given that he's losing either the Ponder or the Pyroblast, not the position he wants to be in, or indeed the Council's Judgment.
Imagine Ivan top decks a counterbalance. Like if Peter doesn't manage to counter it, or he doesn't have an abrupt decay to deal with it.
What are your thoughts? I mean, I've asked you this before earlier in the tournament, but I want to touch upon this again. Thoughtseize against Miracles. I don't think it's clear cut. You mentioned before you're in favour of bringing in or keeping in discard spells like that.
Yes, on the play, I'm absolutely certain because you do have time before top or counterbalance come down. Okay. It's a very awkward top deck, or it can be, but there's a lot of cards that are.
So Monastery Mentor, the draw for Floch. That's a nice one here because what it enables is immediate value with the Ponder. Although it'll be interesting to see if that's how he wants to leverage it. I think that's the line. It's worth the fetch, I think. Playing the Monastery Mentor here.
No, I don't think he's fetching.
No?
Well, maybe he is. Let's see.
I mean, he's a lot better than me, so I'd certainly be going with erring on the side of whatever he has to say about it. But I think immediately playing the Mentor, getting a token, it puts you in a good spot.
The why I'm saying this is why there's a lot of things going on here, because you if you fetch before and Peter counters the Mentor, you've lost your ability to fetch, which is very valuable with Sensei's Divining Top and Brainstorm.
Yep. But if you fetch after...
If you fetch after, a single removal spell on the Mentor means your Ponder will not get you value.
And you've still wasted the fetch. Yeah. So here is Ponderino, and we're going to see now the Monk token enter the battlefield. So it's nice that things worked out for Floch there.
I think ultimately there's just not too many cheap removal spells for Peter, and you don't expect them there to be too many in the deck after sideboarding.
No, certainly not. I mean, things like Murderous Cut, Dismember, that sort of stuff, not at their best against Miracles, but we do now... We're in the position where Floch has... I mean, look at his board position. He's in a good spot.
Oh, very good spot, yes. But on the other hand, he also doesn't have too much going on. He is relying on the top of his deck. after the Thoughtseize.
Abrupt Decay on the Monastery Mentor, and this will be why Floch is very, very glad indeed that he cast the Ponder. That little 1/1 can do some real work. So no fourth land for Sochurek. Still sitting on Tarmogoyf, Abrupt Decay, Force of Will, Delver.
Wouldn't it have been easier to just Force of Will the Mentor? And then you still have the Abrupt Decay for a counterbalance?
Knowing that, knowing that was the draw after the Thoughtseize as well, knowing there's no red elemental blasts or anything else to...
You just took it, so you... Sure, they could... you didn't have to be too scared of a Spell Pierce or something like this.
Floch getting very aggressive here with the Council's Judgment. But it's going to eat a Force of Will, pitching Delver. Wow, I'm surprised by that exchange, Simon. What are your thoughts?
I'm also surprised on both sides, actually.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I were Sochurek, I'd be like, yeah, buddy, absolutely. Get rid of this 1/1.
Yes, but to be fair, the Judgment for Floch is not doing too much. So I understand if he has nothing better to do, he just casts it. And he traded for a Force of Will, so clearly it must have been a good exchange for him.
Very, very good exchange for Floch there, but casting it in the first place, very surprised, given that a Tarmogoyf, given that a Flip Delver could be such a problem for him moving forward. But as it is, choosing not to attack with the Vendilion click here, instead just getting with the 2/2 Monk. One particularly disgusting interaction, Simon, that I'm sure you're aware of, of course, is the 2 tops and the Monastery Mentor. Basically, what that enables people to do, ladies and gentlemen, is spend 1 mana for a Prowess trigger and an extra Monk, because the tops can keep flipping each other onto the top of the library. So I know that Floch will be well aware of that, given that he's bringing in Monastery Mentor, something we haven't seen so far. Nihil Spellbomb brought in for Sochurek here. Given that there's a grand total of, I think, 1 card in Floch's deck, Snapcaster Mage, that relies on the graveyard, that's an interesting call.
It's more of a way to cycle through your deck, I assume.
Yeah, you want to take out so many cards that you need to bring some stuff in, and Nihil Spellbomb, it cycles for minor value for 2 mana.
But this goes back to the question: how good is a card like Dismember or Murderous Cut after sideboarding in this matchup? Okay,
so Floch prepares the top of his library, and it's going to be Jace the Mind Sculptor here. And Sochurek knows exactly what's up here and returns the Tarmogoyf to his hand. And we'll now see an attack and a trade now. So Sochurek looking to conserve his life total just a little bit as he gets hit for 2 by the Monk. So Jace the Mind Sculptor really proving its huge versatility.
I think it's huge power level, but
yeah. Well, yes. Certainly the versatility is a big part of why Jace's power level is so obscene, but the unsummon effect, I mean, and again, the option to do it a second time now, or we've now here is the counterbalance Sensei's Divining Top lock that we've seen already a few times this weekend.
You can make a very nice play here. At least I think it could be interesting. Ah, nice. Also nice drawing a blue card of the Spellbomb.
Yeah, so drawing a Delver off the Spellbomb there, enabling Floch's counterbalance to be forced here. Sochurek happy to do that there.
If the counterbalance had resolved, okay, even if he's still trying to resolve it, he could find a Red Elemental Blast.
Okay.
But had it resolved, he could have bounced the Tarmogoyf after checking that he has a 2 on top.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be tight. That'd be real tight. So Floch not finding anything, so it looks like the counterbalance is not long for this world. Away it goes into Ivan Floch's newly emptied graveyard here.
The question is, do we have a game here or not? Is this Jace currently beating this board?
I don't know. I mean, the Tarmogoyf is absolutely enormous.
Yes, but there's even a chump blocker for it. And how many brainstorms can you survive?
Let's have a look and see what Floch wants to keep here. So it's going to be a brainstorm. It's a brainstorm from the Jace and a Fetcherino from the Polluter Delta. We find a Tundra here, and I'm still not sure what Floch drew.
No, he was far too quick because he knew his top 3 cards. He had already made his decision.
Yeah. And it sorts to Plowshares. Wow, that's a nice one. That's a real nice one.
Peter knew that his Tarmogoyf was not living.
In comes the monk for 3. Oh, Painful Truths. How about that? Restock the hand, mate. Goes down to 7, but I mean, that's a price you're more than happy to pay here. Polluted Delta, Delver of Secrets, and another card there. Simon, did you get a look at that? Oh, whipping it around.
It looks like Brainstorm.
Okay, here's a Delver of Secrets. There you can see Invasive Surgery at the bottom of Sochurek's library.
Would have been not quite the same top deck.
I think a Monastery Mentor's just been put on the top of Floch's library as well here, so he certainly was on the Mentor plan.
Yes, and now Floch will get another threat and Brainstorm or Bounce with Jace.
Yeah.
Even if Peter plays a Brainstorm, flips his Delver and kills Jace, even if this is allowed to happen, which is not clear, I think that the Mentor will take things over. And we do see a similar interaction of what you talked about.
So
using the top.
Using the top to rebuy the... using the top to rebuy a Prowess trigger here. So Floch with 2 lands on the top of his library. I think he'll be shuffling them away post-haste. We're going to see some immediate value off the Mentor as well. So Delver should be able to flip next turn, but right now Sochurek's going to have to do some work to preserve his life total. He's taking 2 already off that monk token. And Floch fetching away those 2 lands that were deposited on the top of his library. He's down to 10.
If Peter kills Jace with Delver, I think he dies to the monks.
I agree.
Even if he draws like a single piece of removal is not going to be enough. Golgari Charm I thought about, but then the Mentor sticks around. I don't see it.
No, it's going to be tricky, I think, as we see Ponder land on the top for Floch here. He's going to flip to draw the Ponder, and we're going to see another. I mean, this is this is the power of it, isn't it, right? And we can shuffle as well now if we need to.
This is how beautifully even now used the maximum, got the maximum amount of triggers.
Yeah.
Which means that his first monk that wasn't summoning sick is already halving Peter's life total.
Yeah, it's already a 3-3, and in it comes Sochurek. I mean, more or less, you have to take it, right?
I honestly think there is not a way out unless there is like some card that deals with the whole opposing board, because you cannot beat an active Jace.
No. And then a Monastery Mentor as well to tidy things up on the ground. So Floch really putting the Mentor plan to good use here.
I'm not sure if I saw this correctly, but it almost looked like Ivan was telling Peter to slam his card. But I don't know. If you have 0 odds, I don't think that's... No, they are just explaining something about the...
how many triggers there were, of course, yeah. So Sochurek down to 2. Okay.
Blind flip.
It's a Flusterstorm. That's going to do it. It's going to be good enough for a 3-2 Insectile Aberration here.
Peter probably realizing that he needs a blind flip to work out, and then maybe he has like a perfect combination of cards here.
Yeah, I can't imagine much of Thoughtseize certainly isn't it, and a Ponder isn't helping an enormous amount either. So we're going to shuffle away the land and the Thoughtseize.
But Flusterstorm is not doing anything either.
No, and the thing is...
the land is actually still in hand to see more cards.
The chances of Floch not having a Prowess trigger here are so low.
They're basically 0,
Basically
right?
0.
Isn't the top coming back?
No, the top's been shuffled away, but between the card in hand, which is, it's a Brainstorm, so there you go. But in addition to that, of course, the Jace the Mind Sculptor Brainstorm ability, which just means, I think Floch has got this one wrapped up. Sochurek digging madly to try to find some way out of this. But all he can find really is just the old handshake. And that's going to do it there for our fourth round. So things are all done and dusted, wrapped up in the feature match area. More Magic action coming your way, my friends. We've got a turbo replay to play you would be very excited about. Simon Gerschenson, it's been an absolute pleasure as ever, my friend. But that is all she wrote for round number 4. We'll see you back here very shortly. Don't go anywhere. More legacy action coming from GP Prague very soon.